Yeah, the first construct which I would like to cover here is displaying a message box alert. Just a simple message box, probably with a OK button, right? So, or with a OK and cancel kind of button, some kind of a message box like that. So, we'll create it from now onwards. Whatever we do, I am not doing it as a personal.xlsb. I'll create it as a part of the local itself. See, and another good thing about this is, now if the moment I say I don't want this as a part of personal.xls, I want it local. All you do is copy this code, create a module in local, paste it there. Now automatically it will go as a part of the personal macro workbook. So, or if you have written one code as a part of the local, this workbook, and you want to take it as a part of the personal macro workbook, want to use it for almost all the files, you want to use that particular data or particular code. What you can very well do is you can copy it and save it as a part of the personal macro workbook. So both things can happen. So that's where you don't need to really bother about, right, whether I have written it, whether I have recorded it as a part of the personal macro workbook, or if the macro is there at some place, you can very well play around in terms of putting it wherever you want. For that, you just need to get into this VBA editor and then paste it as per its position. Now, okay, now I want to create one local code here. So I will come to this insert in the VBA editor where you will have module. So generally the most of the times as a application user, we'll either create modules or we'll create user forms. User form is more like a UI, text box, drop downs, that kind of stuff, like a proper form, user form. You fill the form and click say submit, it updates somewhere. That is what is a user form. Module is a place where we write the code. Class modules are more slightly technical and stuff. So they are more of technicians or technical guys. When he works directly on the collections and groups of objects, they'll use it. But generally from a business user standpoint or an application user standpoint, we'll either create the modules or the user form. We'll do both of them. Okay, once I let's say create a module. Now you see a new module came up here, module 1, and a blank space has come up here. This is where I have to actually write my piece of code. Every piece of code in VBA, there are two types of pieces of code. One is called as a function. The other is called as a subroutine, which is denoted with sub. The difference between the two is sub is more of an action. Like whatever we have been doing, sort, filter, there is no output out of that. So it's not a formula. Whenever we think of a formula, I give this as input, there is some calculation that happens and some output comes out. So whenever our intention is to create a formula, we'll call them as functions. Whenever our job is to do a set of tasks, sort, format, display these counts, using the existing things itself. It's not new formula we are creating. We'll denote that with a sub. Sub is more like a set of tasks. Function is more like a formula, which takes this as input. You remember when we say sum, it takes some input, it adds them and gives an output for us. Wherever there is an input and an output mechanism in a cell, we call it as a formula and we denote it with a function here in VBA. Wherever it's only a set of tasks to be done, where there is no output coming out, right, and no specific inputs and no output coming out, it's a set of tasks which uses existing Excel formulas or existing Excel functions itself doing as tasks, we call it as sub. Sorts, filters, or even existing formulas of Excel. existing formulas of Excel also, like we did that sum, count and all, they are all taken as a part of subs itself. But when we create a new formula, right, we create a new formula which takes ABC as input and gives something as output. So, so simply put, anything to do with our own formulas, if we have to write our own formula, not use existing formulas. If we have to write our own formula, formula means it takes some inputs, gives as an output, like find the sum of top 10 numbers in a data. Find the sum of top 10 runs scored. Right? So I want the sum of top 10. So it should take something as input, out of that do some calculation, and in a single cell give me that this is the output. This is the sum of the top 10. So that there I use some existing formulas or whatever, but for me the output is a formula. The output comes, which is the addition of 10 numbers. Right? So that is what I treat it as a function. But rest all I treat it as subs. So if it, as long as it is not a formula, it's a set of tasks, I write them as subs. Most of the time we write subs only, unless we are introducing a new formula of our own. If we are introducing some new formula of our own, we write it as a function. Otherwise we write them as subs itself. Sub is like a subroutine or a sub procedure. People call it through various names. But the VBA construct is simple sub. So even if you receive whatever the recorded one, you see it has written with a sub country performance. The name we have given it as country performance, but it has put a sub before it, and towards the end it has written as end sub. So whatever is written inside that sub and end sub is actually that macro. So every macro is actually written inside that sub and end sub. So when I write a new macro, I'll again write a new sub. It's like new sub. So every macro is written inside a sub. Right? Only if it is a formula, instead of sub, I'll write it as function. Function and end function. Whereas if I am writing it as sub and end sub, it's only a set of tasks. It does not need to result in some output. It just executes some tasks. Okay, when it is more of execute some tasks, we'll write it as sub. When it is more of give me an answer, we write it as a function. When you ask some question, if you say give me an answer to this, do a calculation and give me some output, we'll write it as function. Do these set of tasks, then it is more of a sub. Okay, now we'll again come back. So I'll write one sub which will simply display a message box to me. Hello world. A very basic program. Just says hello. Okay. So I'll say a simple sub. For this sub I have to give some name. Let's say hello world. Just do an enter. It itself will write the construct. Sub, and after that name it will put some open bracket and a close bracket, and it will do end sub. Whatever we write inside this is actually a macro. So instead of doing a record macro and all, even if we write it as sub and end sub, so the hello world will become one macro for us. Right? In our macros list, we'll see a macro called hello world. Because we are writing it in the local, in this database, or in this worksheet. It's not in the personal macro workbook. In this workbook we are writing it. So it will not show the name of the file as personal macro.xlsb. It will only show it as hello world. That's a macro in the local. We'll see in our macros list. This macro will be there. Once we save this, we'll see this macro also in our list. I'll put a simple, another construct which I am using here is msgbox, which is nothing but message box. Message box is like our alert. In the message box, so it gives some hints also, right? So it is saying message box. First thing you have to give it as a prompt. What do you want as a part of the message box? So here I will display, let's say, hello world. The first step. That's it. Over. So it will display a message box to me saying hello world. Let me save this. Whenever I have a local macro, right? Whenever I have a local macro, the Excel file cannot be saved as .xls or .xlsx. It has to be saved as .xlsm, macro enabled workbook. You just say Control S to this, you will get this message. To save the file, so this macro cannot be saved in macrofee workbook. To save the file with these features, click no and choose as a macro enabled file. If you click on S, the macro will be lost. So you click no, save the file as macro enabled. It's not .xls file, xlsx file. You save it as this one, Excel macro enabled workbook. So it will be saved as .xlsm. Only then a local macro will work. If it is a personal macro workbook, no issues. But if you are writing something as a part of the local workbook, any macro as a part of the local workbook, if that has to work, you have to save it mandatorily, that Excel file, you have to save it as .xlsm. Okay, so let me save this as .xlsm. The way you see the difference in that file also is, you go to that file, you will see with this kind of an exclamatory mark on the Excel file, which is said that this file has macros in it, right? So this is the normal file and this is the file with macros in it. Okay, then any number of macros you write on it, they will be run. Now let me simply run this macro to start with. A simple run button here will execute the macro. Or before I run it, check it in your Excel sheet, whether that macro is visible or not. In your Excel sheet, go to this list of macros, either from that view macros or from here. List of macros, you are saying hello world here. For all other things, because they are a part of the personal macro workbook, that file name hyphen the macro name is coming. Because it is local, only the name of the macro is coming. Either you can do a run from here, you do a simple run, a message box is displayed saying hello world. Right? The simple construct. MSG box means it will just display some value for us. Right? Alright. Now we'll do some improvisation to this. Now I don't want it as hello world. Right? I want to probably get hello BP Patel. Whatever is the name that is mentioned in the Excel cell, I want that to be displayed. In the A2 cell, whatever is present, I want hello that person. Just small improvisation. Right? So what I'll do is I'll write one more sub. Right? I'm maintaining different versions. Right? So I'll say sub hello 2. The second macro. Now the moment you are writing a second macro, there is a line that is getting created separating each of the macros. Right? In this I'll say, again I'll put MSG box. This time I'll put again hello. But this time I want whatever the value that is there in the A2 cell. So, and if I am integrating 2R pieces, hello is a constant and the value from the cell. So the joining is done with an ampersand. Cells. The cell notation is the row number and the column number. So you see here also it has given, when you use the word cells, row index and column index. 2, 1. A is like, again, number only you have to write. Right? The row number and the column number. 2, 1, let's say, which means A2. Now you save it. Run this macro. You go there and from that list you run, or from here itself you click on the run. Hello BP Patel. Right? Again it is creating a no space and all here. So probably you want a space also. You say hello and you put one space and this. So it will put a space there. Just running it. Hello BP Patel. Now in this cell, let's say I change it from BP Patel to something else, this cell. Right? Again run the same macro. It will show a new name. So some small dynamicness is coming into that. Whatever is there as a part of that cell, you just display the name. Now I want it slightly more. Not just that cell 2, 1. Right? I want wherever I click this cell. So wherever I click and run, on this cell if I click and run the macro, I want hello AL Vadekar. And now when I put my cursor here and run it, I want it as hello ED Solkar. So something like that. I want it as slightly more dynamic, which means that cell where I am clicking is actually called as active cell. Right? Active cells value, instead of saying cells 2, 1, I'll say active cell dot value, which is the value of that active cell. So probably if I put here, it will say hello England. It hardly matters whether it's a name or whatever. In which cell my cursor is, I can put it as hello, that one. Slightly more improvisation. So active cell is a construct which will talk about that particular cell. Active sheet means that particular sheet. Active cell means that particular cell. Whichever is active. Active means the cursor being there. Right? So I'll create a third hello program which will improvise on the second one, where I am saying hello 3, or probably you call it whatever name, they are hardly mattered. Name is your understanding, that's it. It should be unique. Because in that list it will show, and only whatever you click that will perform. So here you are saying this time message box, hello, and space and active cell dot value. So you see some constructs you write, when you put a dot you will get some drop down. What all things you can use on that. Some cases you will get that. So that also is one way to get the help. So but these are the common things. So once we remember those 15-20 common things, we can write any level of program. Right? And rest all is a business logic. So okay, active cell dot value over. Right? This is one more message it is giving. Now you see here, you run it. Okay, you run this hello 3. Hello England. Because my cell is on, my cursor is on England. Now when I put my cursor here and run the same macro. Hello GR Vishwanath. Now, if I say, okay, this is whatever is the active cell. Now I say, no, I'll do this cell, whatever is the active cell, and the next active cell also. Hello GR Vishwanath and SM Gavaskar. Active cell as well as something else also. The next one also. Right? The next one also. Only the next one to start with. Right? So wherever my active cell is there, this and the next one. Right? So slightly more improvisation. So then I can go with MSG box, hello, and space, right? Until here it's the same. Active cell dot value and another space, right? Because the next name, so how do I get the next name? So the moment, but how do I go to the next cell? Active cell, I need to know the next cell of the active cell. So for that I am using the movement from the active cell. I'll use a construct called offset. Offset is more like a journey from the active cell. The movement from there. How many rows down, how many columns to the right to that active cell. That is what an offset I will define. The row offset, comma, column offset. So I need 1 row down, 0 columns to the right. To compare to that, so from wherever if you are using offset, offset means from that location, number of rows down and number of columns to the right. So here what will I do is, I'll put 1 comma 0. From that active cell, 1 row down, 0 columns to the right, which means just 1 row down. The same column, 1 row down is the value. So dot value. Instead of taking active cells value, first I am doing an offset from that active, because my cursor is there only in one location. Right? My cursor is there only in one location. For that cursor location, right, I am saying move one row down, 0 columns to the right, get the value of that. So there are 2 values which it is getting, active cell dot value as well as active cell dot offset dot value, which means it is going 1 row down, 0 columns to the right and getting the value of that. Now when you run this, hello ED Solkar, okay, we did not put and or something, we just put a space, so we'll improvise it a little bit. So instead of saying a space, I'll say in this itself I'll put and space, right? Then if I run it, hello ED Solkar and S Madanlal. So wherever I put my cursor now, if I am here, hello this guy and the next guy. So if I want one guy up, I'll put it as -1. From that location, number of rows down or up, plus or minus. So sometimes this offset will help me a lot in trying to connect from that location. From that location, go somewhere else, up or down or right or left. Right? I can simply make it as, right? Or if I say a slightly more improved thing, in this itself, right, I will say active cell dot offset 1 comma 0 dot select, which means that next row is getting selected. So that row will become the active cell now. See, what was my active cell here? GR Vishwanath. When I said active cell dot offset 1.0 means this one. I am saying this dot select. So that cell will be selected now. So for the next strip, that will become the active cell. Next time when I am running it, that will become the active cell. Because whenever I say select, the cursor is moving to that location. Here what did we do? Here we did not use any select. From that active cell, get the value of the next row. So the active cell is not changing. It's not selected. It's only filling the value. Whenever I want it to be selected, I will say dot select. Now you see here, if I run it, you see, hello GR Vishwanath and SM Gavaskar. After I say OK here, you just see this, after I say OK here, my cursor has moved to the next guy. SM Gavaskar is selected. Now the same way if I run it again this time, now it will show SM Gavaskar and AD Gaikwad. Because now the active cell has changed. The next one, now the active cell will go to AD Gaikwad. It can even loop. So now you see the active cell has gone to AD Gaikwad. Now you run the macro again. It will say hello AD Gaikwad and BP Patel. So sometimes you can even make it like this. The moment you are saying select, the active cell position is changing. So some kind of dynamicness you can bring in like that also. Right? So a simple, we did not use any complex construct here, message box and with this. Now in the message box also, you can actually create a slightly different versions of that message box. If you see this message box, okay, we'll probably use the same construct again. We'll use, let's say, the same construct again. Hello, I just copied that piece of code. Now you see, if I say comma, it asks me what type of box you require. The default is only like message box with a OK. But probably sometimes I may require a message box, something like OK and cancel, both buttons. Right? Or only OK. By default, it shows that only OK kind of thing. But if I say I want VB OK and cancel both, I can say, so what kind of message box? In some cases we get, right, abort, retry kind of stuff, or only OK and cancel. So what kind of message box you require? So probably if I say OK, do something, cancel, do something else, all those things also can be written. So this is an improvisation. And I say VB OK, cancel, I'll get a message box. You observe these two message boxes, this as well as this. You'll see a small difference between these two. Right? We'll run the macro now. So first step, we'll run it in a breakpoint mode. We'll run it in a debug mode. Okay, so we'll see F8. So once that is over, a message box is displayed saying hello BP Patel and ED Solkar with a simple OK button. Then active cell dot offset 1.0 dot select. So once this step is executed, the moment the cell has moved to the next, the cursor has moved to the next location. Now again, hello ED Solkar and KD Garvi. OK and cancel buttons have come this time. Probably at a later point, I can write some code. If it is OK, do something. If it is cancelled, do something else. Those kind of things I can very well write. So the way my message box has to be displayed also, I can very well control through this code. So message box actually helps us in trying to understand whether our code has been written properly or not also. Once it gives me, oh, this is the output, this is the message. Okay, I'm getting it correctly itself. So in some cases, we would like to be more interested in terms of using this message box for testing purposes also. Right? What output I require out of the system. Because at the end, it's not doing anything much. It's only giving us the information. Right? But based on that, we may test, okay, this is what is our desired behavior. And message box also is giving the same desired behavior, which means it is working well. Such kind of thing we can derive from this situation. right? So the message box is one construct. Cells is another construct where you will have to give the row number and the column number. Active cell is something which we have used in this case, right? Which will talk, and offset. So some basic constructs, these are the ones, especially for, so wherever I want, not only for message box, wherever I am on a current cell, I want to do something on a current cell, I'll use active cell kind of a construct. If from there, if I want to go to somewhere else, I'll use offset. Because see, if I don't want manually, I want the system, I want to direct the system to do something. So from here, go these many rows down and these many columns to the right, and then do the selection. That is what an offset is doing. Right? Now, the reverse if I want. So here what did we show? From the cell, bringing it into the VBA. From the cell bringing into the VBA, we have done here. Like message box or whatever it is, a cell value bringing it into the VBA. Now if I want to write to a cell, this is reading from a cell and displaying into your VBA. I may think of writing into a cell itself. So wherever I want to write into a cell, let's say, let me stop this debugging. So if I want to write it into a cell, so I'll create one more sub. I say write cell. You write it into a, names can be your own, no issues. Write it to a cell. So I'll simply say cells 10 comma 10, which means 10th row, 10th column, probably J10. Right? Or probably there is, or there might be some value already existing. So I'll say 20 comma 20, probably T20, 20 comma 20 is equal to Vamsidhar. Some text. Right? So in that cells 20 comma 20, this name would be written. When I execute this macro, in that cells 20 comma 20, that name would be 20 comma 21. So row is 20, column is 21. So which is U20. You execute this, you will see in the Excel file, in U21 location, U20 location, Vamsidhar is written. Right? And probably, let's say I want this active cell value to be written there. Okay. So again I'll say here, instead of Vamsidhar, I'll say active cell dot value. Right? Whatever is my active cell, or probably again combination also, active cell and the next active cell. If you want to combine those two, so like this cell and the next cell, combine these two values and write in one single cell. Right? If I have that kind of an objective, combine these two cells and write it there. Okay, then so reading and writing can very well be done through simple constructs. Active cell dot value and this, right? And probably put an and here. What happened? And put an and here, and active cell dot offset, probably 1 or 2 comma 0 means this and the second row from there, not the next one, the next one, the dot value, dot value, that's it. S Venkatraghavan and whatever, S Abidali. Now wherever you put your cursor, you put it here, again you can run the same. Your list is available, right cell is your macro. You will get it as wherever, AD Gaikwad and FM engineer. The same cell, it is getting updated the moment you are running your macro. This is a very basic. So through the code, I can control a lot of things, right? Or let's say I want to duplicate as a simple thing. This same active cell dot value, I want to copy the next cell value. So here also, I want to copy the same name. So active cell dot value should be equal to active cell dot offset dot value. So which means the next cell value will be copied into the current cell. You just see this. Next cell value. I am simply calling it as active cell dot value is equal to active cell dot offset 1, 0 dot value. So whatever is my active cell, the next cell value will be copied. So in this, now it will not be FM engineer, it will be S Madan Lal itself when I run it. Both of them will be S Madan Lal. Both of them will become S Madan Lal. So we are doing very simple things, right? Or, okay, let me paste it back here. Now let's say I want something else. Wherever is my active cell, the two cells I want to swap. So I want FM engineer here and Madan Lal here. Swapping this and the next cell, right? So what I'll do is this value I'll copy into some other location, some temporary location here. Then this one I'll get it back here. This one I'll get it back here and delete from here. This is my 4 steps. If I want to swap manually, I am giving you the chance to swap. What is that you will do? You will copy this somewhere else, because if you directly do a copy paste here, the old one will be gone. So I'll copy this to some other third party location. Then copy the second one to the first location. From the third party location, copy to the second location and then delete from this location. Simple task. Now I can do the same thing through the code, through the active cells, right? I'll say sub swap. Okay, cells 15, 15, some location is equal to active cell dot value. So that cells 15.15 is copying the active cell value. Then active cell dot value is equal to active cell dot offset dot value. Offset 1, 0 dot value, which means the location of the active cell I am replacing with the next cell's value. Active cell dot offset 1, 0 dot value equal to cells 15, 15 dot value, that cell value. Then probably cells 15, 15 dot or cells 15 comma 15 is equal to blank. Just delete it from cells 15 comma 15. That is again becoming, where are we cutting and pasting? No, we are just saying we are assigning some values. It is not moving. It's only giving the value. Okay, we'll do it step by step. Okay, we'll do, so it will be there in cell 1515 also. Okay, I'll show you the steps. Once you execute it, that becomes more easy. Okay, let me run it with a breakpoint on. Okay, let me minimize this. Right, this is, let's say this is our active cell. F8 cells 15 comma 15 is equal to active cell dot value. So probably here it has come out as FM engineer. It's not cut and paste. It is existing at both locations. Okay, then active cell dot value means this value is equal to active cell dot offset dot value. So this has become Madan Lal. Now active cell dot offset 1 comma 0 dot value, which means the next cell value is coming from that location. So 15 comma 15 value is still existing in 15 comma 15. That FM engineer is still existing. So just to delete that FM engineer from there, I am saying cells 15 comma 15 equal to blank. So that here it is becoming blank. So just to make it clean, that a real swapping has occurred. Right? Now again, if I want to take it back, the same thing. Now this time I'll put it again on the same Madan Lal itself and run it. Madan Lal and FM engineer now again will get swapped. Madan Lal is written there. You see here now. As Madan Lal is written here. This has become FM engineer. This has become Madan Lal. Again there it would have gone off. Because we did not, no place we are saying dot select. So that's where the cursor location is not changing. Cursor location is still there only. But whenever we use dot select, the cursor location will change to another location. So select is a tool more for actually doing a selection. Right? So this is the way you can write a very basic piece of code. Reading from Excel into VBA, writing to Excel from VBA. Both of the things can be done through this basic constructs itself. Right? Whatever you write on the left hand side will be the location to which it is written. What value to be written is written on the right hand side of the equal to. Any equal to here, left hand side is the destination, right hand side of the equal to is the source. So you write, so the equal to place, it's not a equality here. The equal to is not an equality. It's a destination and source. Left of the equal to, here when I say cells 15 comma 15, the left of the equal to is destination. Right of equal to is the source. Okay, in cells 15 comma 15, write active cell dot value. Get the active cell dot value, active cells value, and write it in cell 15 comma 15. That is what it means. Right? Then in active cell, write active cell dot 1 dot, offset 1 comma 0 dot value. The next cell's value write in the active cell. So this is like read from this location, collect the information from this location, and write it in this location. Whenever we are putting equal to, it means get the value from something which is to the right of the equal to, set the value to the left of equal to. Get from right, set to left. That is what is the typical meaning of that equal to here. It's not an equality. Sometimes we'll say x equal to x plus 1. Mathematically, it's a blunder because it's not a mathematical relationship for me. Right here I am saying make x, set x equal to x plus 1. So if current x is 3, when I say x equal to x plus 1, then I say now make x equal to 4. Right? When I use a line called x equal to x plus 1, and let's say the current value of x is 3, then I am simply saying it's not x equal to x plus 1 means x and x cancelled off and 1 is equal to 0. That's a mathematical relationship. Right? Whereas the programming relationship is now set the value of x as equal to x plus 1. So if the current value of x is, let's say, 3, now set the value of x as 3 plus 1. First get the value of x plus 1, which is 4. Set it to x. So now x will become 4. Now next time it will become 5. So that's how it goes as a cycle. So whenever we use the term as like this, any equal to sign in any programming language, it is more like you get the value of the right hand side and set it as the left hand side value. Right? So this is the basic programming construct using some of the things like message boxes and cells, getting the value from the cells and writing it. And here, yeah, one more thing I missed out. Let's say the same stuff, I run it, right? I run this on a new sheet, on this sheet. It will pick up from this sheet. Nothing has happened because this is the active cell. This active cell has nothing. Right? This is the active cell now. So it has nothing to do with which sheet I am in. Wherever my cursor is, this is my active cell. So this active cell's value is written at 15, 15, which is again the blank itself. Right? Again, that is filled with the next cell value, which is still the blank. So everything is only blank itself here. It is executing. Right? So depending on where I am putting my cursor, the cell execution happens accordingly, if at all I am using the active cell construct. Fine. Wherever I put my cursor, let's say I write A here, right, and now run it. A is coming to the next because the swapping is happening. The blank is coming there and A is coming to the next location. So it purely, now if I run it here again, A will come into this P11 location. A is again back into that same location. Right? So that's how I can very well put up this kind of situation. Now, okay, I want a slightly more improvised stuff. So what I'll do is I put a shortcut key to it. Okay, I'll go to this macro called write cell. Right, this is what is our macro. What is our macro? Swap, right? Swap is our macro. I go to this swap. I simply do an edit on this. Oh, not edit. I go to this macro. Swap. I go to options. On that swap, I go into options. I put some shortcut key to it. I say, let's say control capital S. Right? I say OK to it. Description is just explaining what it is doing. This swaps the value. You just write a text for your understanding. So now when I put my cursor here and I do control capital S, so my value is swapped. So wherever, okay, I come here. I can very well do this way also. So it's like my own shortcut key now. So any macro I write, for that macro I can even create a shortcut key like this. But of course, remembering all your shortcut keys and all that is again a painful stuff. Right? And so that's where you have to be slightly careful. Something which is more serious, probably creating a shortcut key is much better rather than creating it for each and everything. Right?